Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rodeo Time, the podcast. We are in Fort Benning, Georgia. We're with the U.S. Army, and we're visiting today the Army Marksmanship Unit, and that is where we've got how many people are in AMU?
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's right around 100, maybe 101.
And the Army Marksmanship Unit is something Dwight D. Eisenhower. Isn't his middle initial D?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
He put it together in 1956 to compete on the world stage, put marksmen on the world stage, compete against Russia, at the time Soviet Union.
Correct.
And et cetera. And we did well, but also do some training. The AMU helps train and instruct. So anyhow, we've got one of their instructors here. What would your credentials be, sir?
My credentials, the Army would call me Sergeant First Class Joel Daniel Turner Jr., but you can call me Joel.
Sergeant First Class Joel Daniel Jr. Turner Jr.
Yep.
Okay.
Because my dad was real creative with the name.
Okay. I don't know. Just give him my name. We'll put a JR at the end of it. Come on, Dad. So we're going to hear his story, get to hear his origin story, also get to hear some of the challenges that he overcame in the Army and how he landed in AMU. So if you want to hear more about how to join the Army, how to look into the various jobs, 150 careers you can have in the Army, just click the links below in the description and find out more. All son, now on to the podcast. So I'm only not going to wear my headphones because I've got this awesome helmet. What do you think? What do you think of my helmet?
My main question is that the same shirt from yesterday?
I was hoping no one would notice. Donnie, we good on all the cameras? Okay. Yeah, I was hoping no, but this morning, like I did the sniff test, I severely underpacked for this trip. The first morning, like I went on my run, like no shorts. I was running down the highway in pants.
Oh, okay. So you did have some clothing on. That's
right.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was wearing just jeans, jogging. People were honking at me. Yeah. They were like, that guy's either forgot his shorts, late for something, or maybe on something. But I got my miles in.
Good. Miles.
Yeah. Huh. Yes. You how long have you been in the Army?
I've been in for just over 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
And you guys retire at 20 years.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can stay longer depending, but I plan on doing the 20 and moving on to the next chapter.
What's the next chapter?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
So
You're going to move on to
I
it.
have been looking. I have options. I have buyer's remorse typically, so it's a big deal, and I don't want to just pick the wrong thing right off the bat. So I got 3.5 years to kind of explore my options.
Gotcha. Before we go any further, what are the notches on your cap?
Is this going to get posted?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's just a company that makes them. It's a notch for glasses to accommodate the glasses when you wear them, but I don't wear my hat low enough to do that. Like for me to use them, I'd have to have it down here. And when I'm shooting a rifle and a shotgun, my head naturally kind of goes down. I can't see anything, so I'll leave it up a little bit.
That's handy.
Yeah. I just like them because they're a little more fitted.
I got you.
So
yes, sir.
They don't look like the big trucker hat like the old ones.
I thought maybe it was kind of, like you had accomplished something, and
No.
everybody, I was like, man, all these guys got notches in their caps.
I
Like,
figured,
I'm a nobody.
I figured you'd think they were like bottle openers, After a good stage, crack one open.
It crossed my mind. I'm not going to lie. But so tell me about your origin story. What drew you to the Army 16 and a half years ago?
So I think a lot of the people are products of GWAT. So I was in ninth grade. They turned on the TV, saw the Twin Towers, and I never liked bullies. I never liked people taking advantage of people, and that kind of struck me. And I always kind of wanted to join the Army, and that definitely solidified it. And when I graduated, I worked with my dad for about a year doing foundation work, and I was just in the ditch cleaning it out, and I was like, I'm done with this. This is way too hard. I'm gonna go do something easier. Which I was wrong there, but so I didn't want to do just anything. Like, I've always wanted to do something kind of cool. I was originally going to try to do SF. They changed the age requirements at the time, and my cousin that got me to join was in SF as well, 7th group. And I was kind of like, at that point, I was like, if I can't do that, I'm not going to do it. And he's like, well, let me tell you about like Ranger Battalion. And he's like, you want to blow stuff up? And I'm like, yeah, shoot stuff. I was like, yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, that's definitely the route you should take. And looked into it. I went to the recruiting office with him and got the option 40 contract, and which is essentially, it's a contract saying that if you graduate basic training and at the time complete Airborne School, then you have the ability to go and at the time what was called Regimental Indoctrination Program, which is now RASP. And that's another selection process in itself. I passed that, and then spent my next 4 years there. That was my first 4-year enlistment. That was kind of part of the contract. So did everything I wanted to do there, and I was kind of on the fence of getting out.
So you kind of glossed over it. Like, so you got out of basic, and then you went into
Airborne School. Yeah, that was kind of the pipeline for that contract at the time.
What, isn't that like super hard?
Airborne School? You want the honest answer? I mean, the hardest part is like keeping your eyes open when you jump out of the plane. Like for me, yeah, which is kind of ironic, but it was part of, like, I had to do that, to get there. But I'm not a big heights kind of guy.
Gotcha.
I kept my eyes open, like the important part, handing off the static line and then stepping out of the plane. But close my eyes, count to 4, and I was like, oh, there it is. So
imagine that's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
So at what point in becoming a Ranger did it get really, really hard training?
Man, I mean, the selection process at the time was definitely hard. I would assume it's probably only harder now. Or maybe I went the last hard class. We'll go with that. But
you think it's only harder now? I thought usually it was like harder back in the whenever.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But I mean, the hardest point of that part, I remember specifically, like, because I like quitting wasn't an option. When I was in high school, I tried up wrestling and a bunch of other things, and
hey, if you need to take the call,
let me get that real quick. That's my mom.
It's the president. Yeah.
No, so back to my story before I got rudely interrupted by a telemarketer. So the hardest part of that for me, I remember I wasn't going to quit, right? So I remember we were doing a boot run, like 3-mile boot run, and it wasn't like this was like the first thing. This was like a week or two into it, getting woke up and lack of food and constantly getting smoked. And I remember we were getting to the top of the hill by what's the subway over there, and I remember like starting to like get tunnel vision, and I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, well, I'm not gonna quit, so I guess I'll just pass out right here. And as soon as we got to that top of that hill, like as I was starting to get tunnel vision, we stopped, and then we walked down the hill and kind of did some combative stuff. But I was like, that was like how close I was to like not making it.
Is that what happens right before you pass out?
I suppose. I didn't quite get there, so I don't know.
Yeah, there may have been another layer. You just hadn't learned it yet.
Yeah, exactly. And then
were you watching people quit all around you?
Not at the time, but definitely people up until that point. I mean, this is a fairly high attrition rate.
Yes, sir.
But and I wasn't like a physical stud by any means, and still not if you can't tell. But it's one of those things. If you just want it hard enough, then you'll figure it out. There we go.
Yes, sir. So, you're a Ranger, then what?
About 2009, 10, I So I started off in Charlie Company because people are going to ask. And I went over to HHC, did sniper section and recce. And I kind of did some of the things that I had kind of wanted to do, and those were my goals. And after that, I didn't really, that's where it stopped, right? And I wanted to do something different. I was overseas, and somebody had sent me an email, forwarded an email. And the late, as they called him, Gunny Barrera, was the sergeant major over here at the time, had sent out an email requesting people to come over to AMU, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. And the requirement was a Purple Heart. I was like, well, I don't have that. And I'm like, well, just hit them up anyways. Well, I did, and sure enough, I got stateside and sat down with Mr. Ward, who was Sergeant First Class Ward at the time, and service rifle. And the ITG instructor training group wasn't a thing at the time, but they were trying to make it a thing. So I went to interview. 45 minutes later, Sergeant Major Barreras called me up and said, you're good to go. I'm like, oh, wow. So they got me a letter of acceptance, and I came over here in September 2010, and that's where I've been since, and plan on staying, hopefully.
So what was it about, what made them recognize you and want to bring, because there's only about 100 people in AMU. So what is it that they're like, we need Turner, he's overseas right now?
I think at the time I had a heartbeat.
Okay.
So, no, I don't. Honestly, I don't truly know the real answer.
Somebody knows.
It didn't hurt that, like, when I had to interview, there's some guys that, Sergeant Major Barrera spent most of his entire career, other than the Marine Corps, at regiment. The guy, Steinbach at the time, that was in there with me, had a scroll. So, and I say a scroll, you get that from being over at regiment, and I think that didn't hurt. And again, they weren't looking for a competitive shooter. They were looking for an instructor, and I had a background in long range and stuff like that. So that was just kind of got my foot in the door.
So your goal was to be a ranger. Did you go overseas immediately? After that happened?
Yeah, so probably 6 months of being over there. I went on my first deployment to Iraq, and then while I was with them, I did 3 more tours to Afghanistan.
And what all did you do in Iraq? What was your?
So because, like I said, I was like 6 months there. I was a brand new private, and anybody listening that's from regiment will know how funny this is. But my first deployment was on CSAR, which was Combat Search and Rescue, and they kind of started that ever since Mogadishu. So what we would do is, honestly, nothing cool. And honestly, it's good that I didn't have to do my job. But what you would do is there would be like 5 or 6 of us during a whole deployment stint, and we would fly around with the Air Force PJs and just stage at FOBs that were close to where they were doing missions, just in case something happened. We were on standby to basically pull security for them.
Yes, sir.
So that was my first deployment. It wasn't anything fancy.
And you weren't a ranger at this time?
No, I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was. As soon as you graduate the selection process, you get assigned. Like I said, I was at SECO. Like, you're a ranger then, and that's, I don't care anymore about it. But it used to be like argument about, oh, you're not a real ranger if you weren't at regiment. It's a way of life. But again, I don't care about that anymore. Yes, that's old me.
But so you went on multiple deployments though? Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, there were only like on average about 3-month deployments. Longest one's like 4. They're short, but the op tempo is pretty high. I remember one deployment, like almost every other night we were going out. So you'd have one platoon go out, and then you were on like QRF, Quick Reaction Force, and you would just be on standby. And then the next night you would go out, and most of the times it was at night. So you're always on a reverse schedule. So you're sleeping in the daytime and up at night.
Super hot during the day, hard to sleep, or what time of year were you?
Yeah, I mean, I never was over there when there was snow. So
yes, sir.
Everybody talks about this. I've never saw snow over there, so it just worked out that way. But no, I mean, we're sleeping in like big, they call them hooches, but they're pretty much sealed up from the light, so
yes,
it's not too bad. You get used to it.
I guess that would have been, what year was that? So my first deployment was 2007 into 2008, and then
you're you deploy for 3 to 4 months, and then you're on a training cycle / block leave for like the next 7.
So they had quite a bit set up over there.
Correct. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I fortunately, my first deployment was long enough to where I wasn't going over there like sleeping in an actual tent, eating MREs. So I was fortunate in that aspect.
So were you, when you came over to AMU, were you done with deployments, or did you deploy again after that?
That's actually a great question. So back when I got here, they had already been deploying overseas to like Kabul and training their Afghan army, and essentially I would consider it kind of like their Fort Benning, So like when they get their brand new guys coming in there, we would do the marksmanship portion. So we'd have a translator there, and a lot of times it was kind of hard to get stuff through translation, but that's kind of what we did on that deployment.
Would that have been your last?
That was my last, correct. That was in 2011. So
gotcha.
A long time ago.
So you were training through AMU. You were training some of the Afghan army.
Correct.
There.
Yeah.
Dang. Dang. What was that? Maybe one of the more challenging. I know I was probably pretty challenging yesterday to train, but I guess just
no comment.
Yeah, no comment.
No, you did great.
The communication barrier there, I imagine, would probably make that probably the most difficult to train. Or were they pretty receptive?
I would say that most of them were pretty receptive.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, that's always pretty intriguing to even think about, having to train like somebody else's army.
Yeah, that doesn't speak English.
Right. Well, that doesn't speak English, but also, I mean, because a lot of them, they're not necessarily volunteers like over here, right? I mean, so wouldn't you be dealing with a whole nother attitude? Like they almost would rather not be there?
Possibly. I mean, you might even get that sometimes in the service.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they volunteered, but they were voluntold.
Yeah.
That was something I was talking about with Allie and Sam, just about people coming into the Army for various reasons. But, I was listening to somebody talk about one of the reasons why we are one of the, greatest forces to be reckoned with around the world is that we are just completely volunteer.
Correct.
And people want to be like yourself. For you, quitting wasn't an option, where your counterpart in another country who was instructed, like, you're going to go do this extremely hard training, and they're like, well, I wanted to be a bank teller. Maybe their attitude's going to be a little bit different in that extremely hard training.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why you don't see quite as many people quitting as other countries. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? We're the best, and that's why.
Yeah. America.
That's my thought. America. So how has your job in AMU, how have you been an instructor the whole time?
Yeah. So like my first year and a half here, I kind of trained with service rifle, but we were also doing MTTs, which are mobile marksmanship training events. And again, like I said, that was kind of like what they hired me for primarily, was to come over and kind of help ease the burden off of them so they could continue competing and training. And I did that for about a year and a half. I was one of the first people at ITG, and I'd done that for a solid year, and I'd shot a match, and Horner at the time, which if you look up 3-gun, he's at the top, pulled me off to the side because of that match. I guess he liked my attitude or whatever, and asked if I wanted to join the team. And I'm like, I was kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, and I thought about it, and he kind of thought that I didn't want to because there was a pause. I'm like, no, I want to for sure, because I don't want to be at AMU and not compete. And got my foot in the door over there, and I was just like I had zero experience in 3-gun, but also I've learned so much by just trying to stay humble and knowing that I don't know everything, and I just soaked in everything from all the great shooters at the time that were there, and they got me to where I'm at now.
So when you say you want to compete, you're recruited into AMU to train, but they've also got people in AMU that are competitors at different events around the country, around the world. And 3-gun is one of those competitions that they participate in. So can you explain what 3-gun is?
Yeah, this simplified version of 3-gun is it's some form of carbine, a shotgun, and a pistol. And it just depends. Like with 3-gun, there's no like governing body, so every match you go to might be a little different, but the outline's the same. So you'll have anywhere between 9 to 12 stages over a 2 to 3 day period. And in those courses of fire, you can engage targets from 5 feet away out to 600 or 700 yards away. And you might shoot a stage with only rifle, you might shoot a stage with only pistol or shotgun, or you might shoot a stage with all 3 of them. And it's all time based. And the end goal is to hit all of the targets the fastest.
So do you feel like how long were you in AMU before you went over to 3-gun and started competing?
About a year and a half.
How much did having been deployed and been on operations help you compete in 3-gun?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot there. I'll just be frank with you. Like, I thought I was a fairly just good shooter just amongst my peers back then. And I got here and I was very humbled.
Really?
So I learned more here than I did ever anywhere else. 100%. And honestly, I do know for a fact that like regiments got a structured marksmanship program now. Back then it was very basic, knowing what I know now. But I'd like to think that maybe our units helped with that over the years too. But I've definitely learned more here than I've learned anywhere else.
Has the marksmanship training improved? I can only assume that, like, having been overseas for 20 years, you know, that you would have people coming back saying like, hey, we need to train on this specifically, we need to train less on this specifically and more over here. Is that something that helped it improve, or is it just something that's always improving no matter what?
I would say so. I mean, I think it took way too long for people to realize that there needs to be more emphasis on marksmanship training.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's literally just been like the check the block thing a couple times a year. And then you're going over and you and your buddy's lives depend on, you know, your skills with that weapon system.
Yes, sir.
So,
yeah. I guess it would just be human nature to not just try to check the box at some point, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not. Even if you're infantry, it's not your sole job to just shoot your gun, right?
Well, and if you're not being tested, if you're not at war, like you wouldn't even know that you're not that good until you actually go do so. I assume.
Yeah,
at least.
Correct. Yeah, so I've just seen a lot of leaps and bounds since I've been in for like just trying to push and put more focus on marksmanship.
Do you still, I assume you also train, even though you're competing in these competitions with 3-gun, are you also still training?
Yeah, correct. I mean, every competitive shooter here is a slotted instructor first, shooter second. Even though their primary job would be to compete, every team trains somebody. Like our team specifically, we'll get requests from smaller operational units just for the nature. I mean, you kind of saw yesterday, you know, real fast pace. Again, we're not teaching people how to clear rooms or do anything like that, but there's some key things that they notice that we're really proficient at that they want to get better at, like drawing your pistol fast, making accurate, rapid, you know, engagement shots with handgun, rifle, movement in and out of position, stuff like that.
So who exactly are you training in those scenarios?
Just about every, you know, special operations unit you could probably think of. We've trained quite a bit of them.
And that's all. Has that always been the role of AMU? One of the roles of AMU is to
training, 100%. Yeah, increasing lethality since we began.
Yes, sir. So, I said it on the last one. Eisenhower started AMU in 56.
Correct.
And so it's always been something to showcase, and then also to give that information back to, like you said, various different. So, having been with the AMU for now 12 years, 11 years.
Oh no, I came here in 2000. Yeah, 12.
So, what other jobs were of interest to you that you know, if you weren't with AMU or maybe even you know, a ranger, what else does the Army offer that would have caught your attention?
Not to sound like a robot, but there's like 150 jobs in the Army. Only
Yes,
10
sir.
combat MOSs. But again, for me personally, since that's what you're asking, I had full intentions of getting out.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, for me personally, I didn't want to go to a different unit at the time. And then obviously I looked more into this unit, and I was like, it's definitely something. I like to challenge myself, and whatever I do, no matter what it is, I try to be the best. I'm not necessarily always the best at everything I do, but that's my goal.
Yes,
and
sir.
this place has definitely gave me that opportunity.
Yes, sir.
So.
So out of the 10 combat MOS, 140 other ones, what would you have chosen?
I don't.
You haven't even thought about
I did. This is what I did.
Oh,
I'm doing what I
AMU
choose.
is
There
one of
wasn't
those.
another option.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
you know, if this didn't work out, there's no telling. I'd be greeting people at Walmart.
Yeah.
Hello, would you like a buggy? I don't know.
So I was talking to the girls about this, but I feel like having been in the Army and especially 16 and a half years with all the leaders and mentors you might have had, who is somebody that really kind of inspired you in what you're doing?
That's put me on the spot there. I don't know, man. I've had good ones all throughout. I would say a good one from regiment was Mike Wagner when I was over at Recce. Because when I grew up, it was different over there, and it was very kind of like do what I say. I'm not, you know what I'm saying, because I said so. And he was kind of more of a lenient, like, hey, do this and explain why.
Yes,
more of a
sir.
servant leader, and that's where I kind of got the first taste of that style. And I got over here, and it was pretty much been that way my entire duration here. So
Yes, sir.
man, I've been around different places quite a bit, and I don't know anybody that sticks out per se, but I've just been fortunate enough here where pretty much everybody's been in charge has been good.
So talking about leadership style like that, what is it about? You said his name was Mike.
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner. What would he have been? What do I call him?
Oh, back then, staff sergeant at the time.
Staff Sergeant Wagner.
I don't know. He might have retired by now. I haven't talked to him in a while.
What was it about his leadership style? I mean, is that something you see a lot of, or I mean, I can only assume that like people can get promoted for various reasons, whether they are or they aren't, you know, a good leader like Staff Sergeant Wagner.
Yeah, I mean it unfortunately it happens quite often. But man, about him, like I said, he's not the only one. But like I grew up like, you know, I was, you know, E5 at the time when I met him. But like my whole like first 3 years, it's kind of like yelling at you and like just do it. And like I remember as a private, you just got smoked for absolutely no reason just because you're new. And again, it's neither here nor there, but I don't personally believe that that's the way to make anybody better at anything, you know?
Right.
So when I met him, like it was kind of like a work together, you know, and he would even like bounce off ideas. It wasn't just like, this is my idea and we're doing it. So he kind of, we were more of a team, small team type mentality.
What are there any sort of stories as far as like AMU that like stand out that just really, I mean, having been part of it for 11 years, like, and like you said, you were kind of skeptical in the beginning. Like, what is it about it that made you feel like, all right, this is for me and this is where I want to be? because doing something for a decade, you got to be passionate about it.
Absolutely. And my nature is, and anybody listens to this that knows me, my nature is to like, I'll do something for a little bit and then I move on to something else. Cause I do something like good enough and I move on to, I just like to learn new things here. Especially, the sport of 3-gun, I never shoot the same stage twice typically, unless it's like a reshoot because something malfunctioned. So like for me, it's always changing. Like the fundamentals are still the same, but the stages are never the same. So like it never gets old, if that makes sense, at least for me. And then like all the opportunities that I've been given being here, like the people I've been able to train that like probably only a handful of people in the world have had the ability to say that they've done. I mean, that's just from here. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's the best job in the Army.
And you probably also got to travel quite a bit too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where all have you been outside of Iraq and Afghanistan?
So I've been to just about every state in the United States. Probably 10 years ago, we went to London to compete in their inter-service style match, and we got second to the Omanis, but they conveniently win it every year. So we got second to the people that win it every year, and it was weird courses of fire. So
yeah,
I digress. But yeah, so I went to London. That's probably the only place O'Connors, but I've been to just about every state, which is cool.
Have you trained a lot of other countries? Instructor?
Yeah. I mean,
outside of like
Britain being one of them. They like when we used to have that relationship. After that, they've come out here and trained with us for like a week.
Were they? I'm just trying to think. Like, were there any of them that like kind of surprised you as far as their capabilities compared to the U.S.?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean I'm not gonna go down that road, but yeah, like they definitely shot really well.
Yeah, they know. I imagine there's. We were talking about some of the different, whether it's France or the number of different people that have stayed just in this Holiday Inn here on base that come over to train, and I was thinking like there's probably really good shooters all over the world.
Yeah.
But you guys volunteered to be in this position, so I feel like that changes your attitude as you're training. So that would be a pretty good recipe to spit out some of the best in the world.
Yeah.
When you're a cowboy and you work on, like if you go get a job, there's two different ways really. You can work for the ranch and be, like we call it a camper. A ranch may have different camps around that someone's in charge of. If you're at West Camp or North Camp and you're in charge of a set of cows, well, when you're an employee on that ranch, you're going to get minimal pay,
sure,
$1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month, depending on the ranch, but you don't spend a dime. They give you a beef, they give you a truck to drive, insurance, etc. And then there's day workers that, will contract labor that they'll get paid a day wage. But essentially, like you said, it's the difference I would say, though, is that once you get on the ranch, there's not a lot of increase in pay. It sounds like once you're in the Army, though, you can start climbing pretty quick once you pass a certain level.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. I mean, they always have, re-enlistment bonuses and different incentives. I mean, you can there's plenty of special units out there that pay extra just to be in that unit on top of your normal pay.
I was talking to the girls earlier, and they were talking about Sam, who's on the shotgun side of things with AMU. She's fresh out of, which, I mean, her story better than I do, fresh out of basic training. But they were both talking about just the mindset to get through training, as far as realizing that, you pretty much just do what they say. There's some things they'll do that they're setting you up to fail, but they just want to watch you and experience that just so you can work through, a trial. But it sounded like it kind of molded their mindset a certain way and set them up for success. having been in the Army now for 16 and a half years, did you see how maybe they were trying to transform your mindset, and then how was it transformed, and how has it continued to transform after this long, or has it?
I mean, that was the first step in my career where, like I told you before, I was in high school and I'd like tried things out and I'd quit just because like I don't like it. That was my first step of like, all right, I can't quit because I want to get, I'm starting at A, I want to get to C, right? I want to get to battalions. I ain't even like worried about quitting anything here. And again, like it goes back to what I was talking about, how your parents raised you. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. So listening to somebody else tell me what to do wasn't like a big deal, right? And I knew they knew more than I did. So, yeah.
So you were quitting a lot of things, like what?
I did wrestling, like I said. I did cross country. I'm still not like a great runner, but I can definitely run better than I did back then. And yeah, I'd run like a half mile. I'm like, yeah, like, oh, this is not for me.
Right.
So yeah, just if it got a little hard, but again, it goes back. My heart wasn't in it. I was just doing it just to do something because people were playing sports in school, so I felt obligated to do that. So
yeah, we were talking about this, and there's all kinds of, a lot of parents or whatever would say quitting in the middle of the season is one thing, especially if it's a team sport, because you've agreed to help your team through something, and then you're leaving a team. But I would say between seasons, I don't know. I looking back, I just always had bareback riding, for instance. I started riding bareback horses, and love bull riding, love saddle bronc riding. But there was a point where I enjoyed bareback riding in the beginning, but I didn't enjoy like the buckers, like the sure enough like man killers.
Yeah.
Bull riding and bronc riding, I appreciated that challenge. Bareback riding, I wasn't about it. And so it took me a long time though to realize like, hey, it's okay to quit something that you're not passionate about.
Sure.
But I could see how, for instance, with you, with like cross country, especially it's one man deal, like,
and you're just running.
Right.
There's nothing fun about running ever. Even people that are good at running probably would admit they don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I've actually recently came around. Like I run a lot now, and it's hard to admit to myself I enjoyed having ran.
Yeah, you always feel good after the fact, but
right. But I'm a civilian. With you, it's different. So you were the guy that quit cross country, but then signed up to like run for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and
so
be
how did that
tested
work
every
out?
year on my ability to run.
Yeah, how did that work?
You just do it, and again, in basic, you run a lot. Airborne, you definitely run a lot. It's called the Airborne Shuffle. It's like a painful run, like you literally shuffling your feet. So honestly, your shins hurt afterwards. And then obviously, when I went through RIP, you ran even more. And it just, I did more running then. I guess it set me up for success. And I kind of realized, because if you don't run a lot, you get that chest pain, you can't really breathe very well, like just because you don't ever do it, like it kind of scares you a little bit to like push harder, and you realize like, okay, maybe I won't die, and you just keep pushing. You realize, okay, I can just get through that. Again, right. Running sounds terrible when I say it out loud.
Well, like I was saying about the quitting part, like I think there's some things in life that you're not passionate about it. It's okay to just stop doing that thing and transition to something that you are passionate about, especially early in life. But yeah, that signing on that dotted line after you join the Army, there's not much quitting. You're pretty much there for 4 years.
Absolutely.
Is that like a daunting feeling, like after you do, even if you do have a goal?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a big jump, because you're gonna sign up for 4 years. You're like, well, what if I don't like it?
Right.
Know, so then you just kind of have to deal with it. And some people have their ways of getting around that. Again, like I said, quitting wasn't an option, so I just stuck it up to the end. And I remember my first 4 year enlistment, I was counting down the days till I got out. And then, like I said, that I found out about this place, and it kind of like rekindled the fire, if you will, and it hasn't gone out since. So it's a pretty good place to work, I suppose.
So I guess I missed that part of your story. You were counting the days to get out when you came over to AMU?
No. Sorry. When I was over at Regiment.
Okay.
Because I had that 4-year obligation, and I had some very good times over there. I had some bad times, but again, that was a long time ago. And I just remember I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm done. Like I said, I like to do new things pretty regularly, and I'd been over there about that amount of time, and I just wanted a new challenge.
So that was when you realized they had plenty more challenges that the Army offered.
Yeah, because I told myself, like I said at the very beginning when I went to the recruiting office, that like I'm not gonna do anything else. Like this is all I want to do, and I did that, and I was like, oh, well, now what?
Right.
And I was like, there's no way there's a cooler job than this. And again, even it had its bad days, and came here, and I mean, it's like I said, I can't say it enough. This is like the best job in the Army.
That's what Sam said. She said you really just got to ask the right questions whenever you're in the Army.
Yeah.
And kind of like they may not hold your hand through all the different options. Like you really just need to ask the right questions, ask the right people. But I guess they recruited you to come over here, so maybe they did kind of hold your hand and bring you over to AMU in a way.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
So cool. Well, what we normally do is we kind of wrap it up with life advice. And what I did with the girls was life advice to just the world, whether, if you're talking to anybody, and then life advice for like a young recruit who is either thinking about going to the Army or just joined.
I can give you, honestly didn't think about this, but I'll just go with my gut feeling. I can give you something for both parties.
Perfect.
Whatever you do, like the only option is to be your best at it, and don't quit. And I'm telling you, I've benefited the most from the most difficult times in my career, where I hate to bring this up. I hate to say the R word, but like Ranger School, like when I was like cold and wet and I was just like almost borderline crying, I wanted to quit. And I was like, next hardball road I come across, I'm quitting, right? I walked across it. And I was like, I'll quit tomorrow.
Yeah.
So just tell yourself, you're going to quit, just quit tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, just keep saying that over and over again. And eventually, like you'll reap the benefits of that. If you quit, you'll never know if you know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if I would have quit a long time ago.
Right. 100%.
So that would probably be
is that your advice to everybody, or that's your advice
everybody? Yeah. Okay. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be the Army.
So to the young potential Army recruit, what would you say? They're thinking about coming in, or they just signed, one of the two?
Depends on where they grew up at and how they were raised, but basic is probably the easiest thing you can do.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you're not in charge of anything. Your only requirements are to be in the right place at the right time in the right uniform, and just, Roger that, drill sergeant. That's all you have to do. They feed you and everything. You do get to sleep, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah.
So, and it gets easier. The longer you stay in, the easier it typically gets. So,
dang, that's good advice.
Thanks.
Yeah. Basic is easy.
I was practicing in the mirror last night.
Yeah. Well, if you want to hear more about how to get involved with the U.S. Army, check the links down below in the description. And go U.S. Army, AMU, the elite shooters of the Army. Do you feel elite? Because you're like elite.
It depends on the day.
It depends on the day. All right, I'm Dale Brisby. Thanks for listening to the Rodeo Time podcast, and we are on to the next one.